Good evening. Welcome to another edition of African Americans Ain't Africans, the Think Show that proves without a shadow of a doubt that the so called African American didn't find their way to America in the trunk of a ship. I'm your host, the Indigenous One. You guys ain't gonna believe this tonight. What you about to get, what you about to learn, it's gonna blow you away. Before they came up with the TVs, the newspapers, they used to make these little cartoons, in everyday life, little paintings, and they would, send them around the village, send them around the country, send them around the state, send them around the county to communicate with the masses. One of the things they did, they would draw pictures and write little stories about them, to get everybody on the same page. You're about to learn some things. And when you see how this done, you're going to be like, damn, that's today. That's the internet. That's TV. But it's just an older version of some things that were said about you and some images about you that was going on supposedly when you were riding, taking a cruise over here from Africa. Listen to these descriptions and what they're saying, how the mindset got to how it is now. Because, a lot of us, we don't know this stuff. This type of stuff hasn't passed down. So, my guest tonight is from the Accomack clan on the eastern shore of Virginia. And tonight we have at our disposal to disseminate some information to us is Chiefess. How you doing, Chiefess?
Doing all right. Feeling pretty good.
Chiefess, do me a favor. Tell us a little bit about the Chiefess
Okay,
so
so
we'll know
I
who we talking to.
so my name I usually go on here as the Chiefess, but I have another account on TikTok, and usually I'll just have my description. I'll have like the region that my people are from, and then I'll have my term. Now, when I first put it, I will put I'll put Accomack as a woman Bay, or I'll just put Accomack as a woman. However, I looked up what as a woman means, and it's an Eastern Algonquin name specifically from the Eastern Shore that means the matriarch of a tribe. Right now, Nandua was one of the empresses that were she was a daughter of one of the chiefs, but she became empress. So I kind of made those a separate name, but literally, the chiefess Nandua as a woman is like something over time started to make sense, because you can call yourself the chiefess for people who don't understand that, right? And Nandua was actually an empress who was a chiefess, but we actually have a word for chiefess that is specifically Accomack, which is Assawaman or Assawanman. So, and it's also a bay, like further up the shore, further up the Chesapeake. There's an Assawoman Bay, going towards Maryland, but it's like in the Maryland, Virginia region, going towards Assateague Island and Chincoteague Island.
Okay, so when you say Bay, that's Bay like Chesapeake Bay, not Bay like the Moors.
Exactly. Exactly. We don't do that
Okay,
over here. Mm-mm.
okay, cool. Well, let me ask you another question. Okay, so how you connected yourself and you going through your genealogy and your lineage, and you're finding these things about the place that you live, the place that you're connected to naturally, spiritually. How what's the feel of that instead of believing you are African, drinking, dressing in African clothing, wearing kente cloth and all that? What's the difference in how that makes you feel relating to that?
There's a world of difference. Like, I don't know. Like, I know my mom, she showed us roots, but I just felt like it was some fake ass shit. And I'm like, just based off of our mentality as a people, just the concept of a wooden boat going over the currents of the Atlantic Ocean here sounds fucking ridiculous, right? Like, just on the financial scale, you're hiring people who don't know anything about the land, the resources, and there is no record of any African interpreters. Like, there's so many things that just don't make sense about the story. And when I saw Roots, I'm just like, what the fuck am I looking at? You know, he getting beat, his foot got cut off, all this crazy ass shit, you know. And my thing is like, I remember I was watching this show called The Shy, and one of my favorite characters is this, I forgot her name, Keisha. Keisha off The Shy. She had a situation where she was raped, right? And she was being held hostage. Like, she was raped repeatedly and held hostage, right? Now, if you're in an environment that you associate with negative things, horrible things, atrocious things, your first instinct is to get the heck out of Dodge and go as far away as possible from that place. Now, the people here are POW, so they're not leaving where they're from, you know. Uh they're not, oh, I got my leg cut off because of massa because I ran. I got to make it to Africa. I've never heard any of those stories. I've never heard any of those oral traditions. So, to me, when I was being, you know, told and kind of learned some things, because even before I knew, I had a feeling, but I just didn't really know for sure. I would see my progenitors and they would come visit me and they'll be wearing like these wild ass headdresses and shit. And I'm like, huh, okay. I didn't really correlate it at the time. But years later, it made sense. It put so many things together. And for me, when I go to the Eastern Shore, that's my motherland, you know?
Right.
I enjoy having summits there, specifically on the peninsula. When I go and I spend several days on the peninsula, it's like it's like being recharged. Like, it's like you're getting on sitting on a charging dock for several days, and when you come back you just feel replenished. So, to have that as my reality, it's mind changing. It it kind of makes you realize that there's so many things that we do in this society that don't make any fucking sense, really. And to have a sense of self that cannot be disputed, it is reassuring, you know. And it also makes you think about all the people before you that, even though they're not here, they looked out for you in the long run. And it's kind of like baffling how, if you think about Oscarville, Seneca Village, Tulsa, if you think about the Eastern Shore, it's like a gigantic Tulsa. There's so many old houses there, so much buried history. There's tales of like an Indian being a house being built over an Indian, like, but the Indian was like 150 years old and shit, like wild shit like that. So, to me, it changes my trajectory of how I navigate throughout society and my world, how I just deal with people. It alters so much for me, and I'm grateful that I have come to this information and come to this new reality. And I'm forever grateful for my ancestors, you know.
You said when you sit on the peninsula, It's like your recharge. And then you brought up cities that were decimated. Do you think that has any reason that we're living in these ghettos and on top of this concrete and stuff? What do you think going from a environment like you just described, going into a environment that sits on top of concrete and not really surrounded by what would be going on in that peninsula?
I feel like the cities, well, for one, we've always had towns, but cities are fairly new and they do disconnect you. And cities they're kind of deceptive because if you think about how many buildings, like if you think about Atlanta, right? Atlanta was burnt down twice, right? And
The
there's,
whole city?
yeah, it was burnt down twice. And there are buildings that were up that were like beautiful, gorgeous buildings that they just fucking tear down. You know, Atlanta used to have, actually, if you think about it, Atlanta, specifically Lenox, used to be called Johnsontown, and it was a predominantly indigenous city, so called black. They moved them out of it and called it Lenox. So anything that we work with, that we got our hands on, they want to take a hold of. And right now, they are re-gentrifying Atlanta again. They used to have housing projects. A lot of those get either repurposed or knocked down. You know, for the Olympics, they did the same thing. For the Georgia Dome, they knocked down a whole entire community of indigenous people called Summer Hill. That got knocked down for the Georgia Dome. So, like, they have a habit of decimating for repurposing in these cities. The one thing I can say about a city is that if you want a job fast, you're gonna get it faster, and no one's really gonna care how much you make. They just want people to work in a city. So if you're just trying to work and not be bothered, that's one thing about a city you'll do. Now, suburbs, it's like fucking Hunger Games. So nobody wants you to have anything except them. Cities, nobody has time to care about you having anything because they need workers. And the country has always kind of been there. So it's a little bit different than cities. Cities and or towns and countries have always been around, but suburbs are the new thing. And they're not necessarily what I would say what's the word? Sustainable. Because majority of the time, if you look at like a movie like Hunger Games, that's pretty much what a fucking suburb is. And suburbs were created to keep the the white, the pale Europeans away from all the darkies. And a lot of the times how we have our suburbs kind of, why they look so fucking ugly, is because of fucking racism. But if people who aren't from here, who are descendants of orphans, felons, and slaves, just said, hey, England, Italy, Portugal, uh, all these countries that rejected me, can you take me back? They don't do that. They
Right.
continue this narrative and lie and try to push the Indian around all the fucking time like it's a game of fucking Pong.
So why do you think that it's so hard? I mean, for as a nation of people, and I say this and I always believe us, it's more of us here. And the reason I say that is because of a simple question that nobody never asks. Because I notice when we talk about things like you're talking about, we never ask the question. Somebody is always telling us stuff, and we're taking that and regurgitating it back to something that makes no sense. So with all this stuff going on, what is taking a nation of people to come to these conclusions, these facts that you're sharing tonight and what's been shared? I mean, I see it from 10 years ago. This is amazing, but it's still maybe only 10% of the people. What do you think the other 90%, maybe 70% who knows what's going on? How come nothing's not clicking to make this work? Because we're not seeing, we're not getting it. And I know they just infused the immigrants in here.
Right.
So how do you think that is making the situation more complex too?
Making the immigrants or
No, I mean, put because now, I mean, it's like you were saying earlier. You
uh,
got cats still, they call these cats that try to make fun and still try to talk crap. Do you think that may be artificial intelligence? You
oh
know,
the
are
like
are these people just that dumb
uh,
that they can't see? Because I'm seeing young people be like, they get it. What you just said, they would vibe to that. You
right,
connected to the land here.
right.
Instead of going off to some far-fetched land, your ancestors here. You know that. And that's why I asked you, does that make you move a little bit different?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely.
So,
Definitely.
upon hearing this, a person hears this. Why do you think that? I mean, it's a lot of people vibing to it. It really,
Oh
but
yeah.
you know, we still have that crowd out there that's and just don't want to believe it. What
Right.
do you think will have to happen for them to finally go down? You're right. They can't say nothing else.
That is something that I feel like a lot of us face. And it would speak to the topic of the internet Indian specifically because you know when you talk about certain topics to a person that isn't familiar with those topics, depending on how they interact with information and how they receive it, because sometimes you could speak to a topic. I remember I was working as a security guard a couple of years ago, and I was talking about, not every black person is African, and not every black person is whatever, right? And I told her, I'm indigenous to here. And she said, well, I get you, but I'm indigenous to Europe. So, like, you know, depending on the person,
Right.
that is how we kind of deal with it. But a lot of people don't. They want to, roll around like a little crybaby ass. Like they want to just vibe, or they want to not think about it. But it's like half of the stuff that you're going to be doing is clerical at the end of the day. Like, even as a tribe, as a nation, we do a lot of clerical work. That's like 90% of our work. Meetings, clerical work, right? But depending on how it's presented is one thing. If you can present it in a way that someone as simple as a person that works in a bar or security can get it, that's okay. But certain people aren't really motherfucking people. Okay? Some people have the body of a person but a soul of a fucking chicken, or the body of a person and the soul of a fucking dog. Like, some people
Right.
aren't people. So they're not going to be receptive to the information because they're stuck in a certain type of loop that doesn't allow them to understand it. Or let's say what they learned from being a Pan African, or what they associate with it emotionally, it it makes them stuck to not even think about the information, right?
Right.
But what I always do, and this is what pisses them off, I always bring up water, right? Bodies of water. The bodies of water argument, it will stump every person and it pisses them the fuck off. If you mentioned it to them how many bodies of water in America and how old the water is, how old the rivers are compared to like a country, a continent like Africa, it sets them ablaze. It's amazing.
Can you give us an example?
Yes, I can give you an example. So, America has in totality 250,000 bodies of water. Africa has over like 67. And the oldest river in Africa is 205 million years old. One of the rivers that's in Virginia is the James River. It is about 325 million years, 320 or 400 million years old. Now, there's another river called the Susquehanna River that flows from Pennsylvania down to the Chesapeake. That river is 325 million years old. But those aren't the oldest rivers in America. Um, the Nile River is only 90 million years old. So Africa as a continent and a landmass is fairly young because if you think about it, if you don't have a river or any bodies of water, you do not have a civilization. So, as a whole, Africa's bodies of water are fairly young compared to a good amount of countries, not just America. And they have limited amount of bodies of water. We have 250,000 bodies of water in America alone compared to Africa's 67, right? And let's keep in mind this fucked up fact. There's about 50,000 artificial lakes in America, which means if you have an artificial lake, that means you have a town that is possibly underneath that lake that's artificial. 9 times out of 10, you're going to find a town underneath that artificial lake in America.
So that's damn near 330, was it 30,000, 300,000 bodies of water.
Right.
So when they come up across this information, what goes through their mind
Oh,
when you
they
drop
get
that off?
mad. They want to cuss you out, call
What?
you out your name. They have bonded with certain ideologies, but
Right,
they have not done the genealogy of
right,
themselves.
right,
Everybody is trying to run from themselves. And me or and I've noticed this as a trend on the internet is that they don't like separation. They don't like, oh, we all from Africa. Oh, we all. Am I fucking French? No, I am not. Ain't no we. You got to figure out who you are, who your
right,
grandma is, who your granddaddy is, all them people. Because that's how we connect. Oh, you got this line. Oh, I got the Johnson line. I got the Davis line. I got, whatever. Oh, he comes through this way.
right,
That's how you connect. Not this fake ass root story who Alex Haley got sued for. We're not doing that. That doesn't work for us because there's so much money being spent on distracting the Indian, redirecting the Indian, controlling the Indian, triggering the Indian from not being Indian. Like, so much funding goes into our deception and betrayal. It is ridiculous. Whether it's a celebrity, whether it's disgusting ass Diddy and
right,
fucking all that bullshit with him, even with the whole Cat Williams thing, that was pretty cool. But you got people who are like conspiracy theorists. Oh, he's a
right,
Freemason. It's just like, you say that, but are you a Mason to know what's really going on? You really don't.
right,
Because if you don't know what union, the union is still under control. The Confederate was us, right? So the union came through the Alawite dynasty specifically. So you got to go to who those people are, who they're connected to see what's going on. Because if you were a Moor, are you an Alawite? Are you an Ottoman Empire? Which Moor are you? And if you tell them more which dynasty you come from, they get mad. But that's important too.
Why
It's
do they get
important
mad?
because they just want to stick to the Noble Drew Ali ideology, not the actual genealogy of what a Moor is or who a Moor was.
Right,
Because at the end of the day, if you're a Moor, you're just a Muslim.
right.
Outside of the temple and all that nonsense, you're just a Muslim. So people get complacent. They don't want to do the work. They want to just not think about nothing, but that doesn't necessarily help them in the long run.
So the information that you're saying now about, you were telling us about a princess living on the peninsula. When do you think we should start teaching our children these stories or these history lessons?
I mean, when do they start reading? When do you start reading them books? When they go, do the kids want to hear a story when they go to bed or watch a cartoon, or when they get when they are able to process information is when you should start telling them these stories, honestly. I wouldn't wait.
To the chat, I just put a link in the description box. If anybody want to come on and ask the chiefess questions, you're free to do so. Or if you just have something to say that you can share, was kind of like she's sharing, we love to hear your voice. The image that we have. Can you talk to us about that and how does that relate till today?
Yep, and I probably have a few other things to kind of go with it because the description, I'm going to read it. It's very long, but it'll kind of get across. The Prince of Wales and his adherents are trespassed as black men. The prince stands in a doorway inscribed Brooks, Rectifier of Spirits, which is represented as a debtor's prison. The heads of George Hanger and Burke are seen through a barred window on the left side, on which hangs a basket inscribed, Pray remember us poor blacks. Both are naked, except for the Hanger's accustomed cocked hat and Burke's beretta. The prince wears a girdle of leaves, a helmet feathered like a headdress, and of a Native American, but decorated with triple ostrich plume. His ribbon conformed his ribbon and star. He holds in his hands a concertion at the approach of Fox and North as a woman, their arms interlaced, their faces contorted with grief. Fox's hat is inscribed Carlos Cresu, on his breast a place card or placard. We are unfortunately cast away in the British Channel on aboard the Portland India Man, an allusion to the defeat of the coalition on the Fox's India Bill, and probably an imitation of the placards of begging seamen. Their scanty garments are ragged. From the North Garter's ribbon hangs a placard, ruined by the American War. Behind them is another couple with arms interlaced, Lord George Gordon with a black man who carries a primitive string instrument, his captain scribed, Man Friday. He is perhaps intended for Sheridan. Gordon flourishes with the paper inscribed Defiance of the Blacks by Lord something else, and says, by all the glories of mischief, they have no right to send us to Africa. At the end of the procession, a Thurlow with a raised stick chases a black man wearing a cap inscribed purveyor. He resembles, I don't know what that word is, except that he is short and fat, and it says, with his hands collapsed, oh, bless your heart, Massa Beetlebrow. If you lick a poor Negra man, he'll pimp for you.
What's the date on that?
The date on that is 1787.
So that's about the time the cruise ships from Africa were coming over here, right?
Right.
Okay, so they're saying the people in the and if you guys are looking at this image, check it out. And when you start finding other images like this, read all the words and all this, or find it in a museum or somewhere online and read what this stuff is saying. And it'll tell you what was going on, the news back then. Very interesting. So these people that we see in this image, these are people coming from other places, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. That's it. Let's see.
Wow. So how does this relate to events of today?
Well, when I read the part that said they have no right to send us to Africa, I'm like, they always trying to send fucking Indians to Africa, bro. Like,
Right.
that has been a thing. I even have another picture. I'll probably let me share this with you. I'm gonna email it to you right now. This is from Northampton County's records in Virginia. I'm gonna email it to you real quick so you can look at this. Oh hell
And
no.
I'll share it with the chat, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting because you got that, you got Cuffy, you got the American Colonization Society. Like, there's a whole, like, it's been a thing. Let me just
Right.
put.
I mean, but shouldn't this type information be like secondary? I mean, we should know seriously. Is it just that we just don't want to know what? I mean, in the people in the chat, are you feeling what this sister's bringing forth? Because it's like this. How can we miss this?
Oh, wait, what was I supposed to
Okay,
do?
now what is this?
That okay, I'm gonna read it. You can share it on the share
Oh,
it. You
I'm
can
gonna
put
share it
the
on the screen right now.
check that out. I'll read it though once you got it up.
Okay, we have a person trying to join the chat, Chief. Here you go.
Okay.
Lamont, what's going on? Antoine Lamont, what's going on? Okay, sir. Okay, let me share it to the group. Let me share it to the group.
All right.
Okay, there you go. Okay, now what is this saying?
Okay. So let me check it out. It says so pretty much. I'm just gonna read it from here. This insurrection, okay, blah, blah, blah. The movement of force of free blacks out-achieved its greatest impetus after Nat Turner Rebellion in Southampton County left 57 men, women, and children dead and 8 unalived. In 1831, slave rebellion fulfilled the nightmares that for years had troubled the sleep of every white Virginian in the Tidewater. The citizens of Northampton County responded to the calamity by attending a mass meeting at the county seat in Eastville, called one of the county's leading citizens, Abel Upshur. Abel Upshur was a general court judge and I'm pretty sure he stole that name because he has Upshur Parker. And anyone that has two names like that, it's a white person that stole the name. So we'll get into that later. Okay, so yeah. Upshur believed that the free Negro population in the county was inherently dangerous and must be removed as quickly as possible. At the Eastville meeting, called in 1831, Upshur called on the residents of Northampton County to finance the deportation he received pledges of 15,000 each from 19 citizens anxious to see the work begun. Later that year, some citizens of Northampton County petitioned the legislature for removal of their plan to deport their free black population.
You know,
So that's in Northampton County where my people are from, where this happened. It says degraded by the stain in which attaches to their color, excluded from many silver privileges which the humblest white man enjoys, and denied all participation in the government, it would wholly absurd expect from them any attachment to our laws, institutions, or any sympathy with our people. Let's keep in mind one thing about these orphan slaves. They came here as orphan slaves and felons, right? And we're in the middle of them taking on identities. So keep in mind, his name is Abel Parker Upshur. And what these orphan slaves do is they take on the surnames tied to that landmass. So they're in the middle of identity theft right then and there. Even the laws and privileges, keep in mind that if you go back maybe 200 years in Northampton County, Accomack County, Somerset County, Maryland, the people that were in power were predominantly indigenous people, right? There is a court case of a lady calling a woman in a word that they couldn't even mention in the record. And her punishment was either you're going to apologize or we're going to drag you across the lake with a canoe. She apologized. So over time, they changed, and more of them were in power in the government, as executors and things of that nature in the county. But it wasn't always like that. All the houses on the Eastern Shore are fairly old. You know, they'll say, oh, 1650, 1750, but all those brick homes and houses, you're not going to see those in England. Those are specific to the Eastern Shore and the indigenous people there, because we had multiple Indian towns, not just Indian Town Park. We had Savageville, Mapsville, multiple different towns, Drummond Town, right? So, yeah, this whole thing of trying to remove Indians has been a thing for a very, very long time. And we're in the wake of the same shit, maybe a fucking note, but it's the same thing in a different note. They're bringing in more and more immigrants, you know, the all that type of stuff. But the thing about it is like I always felt like a lot of we had there's so much of us because there's talks about another cop city being built in Baltimore. There's talks about a cop city in Atlanta. But if we know anything and use our common sense, right? Who do they intend to lock up? If the so-called coloreds, the blacks, if they're only 13% of the population, why are they building these freaking prisons in predominantly colored locations if we are a small group, a small minority? It doesn't make sense. Why are there entire industries built around us if we're the minority? It doesn't make any sense. Why flood the country with a bunch of useless, mindless throwaways from different countries? It doesn't make any sense.
So this is what I so as you were reading that, I was like, these people donated $19,000 to get the people out of there.
Right.
So then I'm asking my questions. How did they? This is what 1870s,
1830,
1831,
1831. Yeah.
1831. Where were these people getting all that money? How are they coming across all that money? And the calculator wouldn't go back to 1831. It just went back to 1914.
Mm,
And this is how much $15,000 was
right.
in 1914. So people who would do what you're doing, people who would go back and see how their land got stolen and all this could be kind of a little calculator to kind of find out where you are. You
Right.
probably can find, let's say you go back to a couple of grandparents before this to 1800. What were the dollars worth then compared to now? That is if you're indigenous. If you're coming from a Moorish standpoint, a no-tep standpoint, a Hebrew Israelite, see, this type of stuff wouldn't apply to you.
Yeah.
It wouldn't apply to you. So these are the things that we saying when you say that you're these things, please know what you're talking about because you're going to get ate up from now on. Because what it does is confuses the masses who are trying to learn. And you see the names that they were calling you back then, same names they call you now, the blacks.
Hmm.
It's not like you're a person or a people, you're things. Then they get you to call yourself that and laugh behind closed doors that you do it. This is something they're telling you you are to disconnect you from the time space continuum that you are in.
Yep.
How those people were living, you like you say, how many 250,000 waterways? They were on a different vibration back then. But since you don't claim it, other people come and claim it.
Right.
So yeah, so that's interesting. I mean, and this book is, when was this book published or put out or written or whatever?
Let's see. Probably. I don't even know. It might be a collection of colonial records. That's what it looks like. Probably like 18 something, like late 1800s, but a reprint from what I'm
Right.
looking at. Yeah.
I mean, so this is the history and the stories your children should be getting. they would grasp onto it just like that if we just gave it to them.
Mhm.
And remember, this is just one place in America. And I'm telling you, if you ever been on the Eastern Shore, I this is probably the closest thing to heaven. And there's probably places like that all over the country.
Mhm.
We're just not in them because we're in these cities and these little towns that a lot of us moved to or were forced to. You go to some of these places, it'll blow you away, and you can tell. You like she said, you recharged in these places. When you come back, your think is not even the same. You don't even think the same way no more. Whatever you were thinking when you went into these type places, you'll be thinking something totally different when you come out.
Exactly.
So when you talk about these these different groups, these different um factions, or however they're thinking, however they're believing stuff and all that. What are some of the main problems that you're seeing?
Um, I think we are in a time where everybody is overstimulated, and it's hard to focus, but everything is like polarizing. So like there's people like I'm no longer on Clubhouse like that because of their guidelines are horrible. Literally, if you use Clubhouse, essentially, if you use their app to have a conversation, they will get royalties and get paid off of your conversation because you use their app. That's how horrible Clubhouse is. So I'm on TikTok. And TikTok is very interesting because you have different groups of internet Indians. And for me, I'm Indian in real life. I'm Akamak in real life. I'm not just on the internet talking about genealogy, and which is important because tying yourself to the land at a certain time and it's set in stone. My thing is we got to do things that make sense. But what I've been seeing is that we get caught up on beefing and having internet beef. So some of the more melanated Indians that are internet Indians will beef with the federally recognized Native Americans, right? The Native Americans be like, "Oh, you're African. Oh, you don't speak the language. You're not what different stuff like that." And then it's gotten so bad that the Pan Africans they hate books now. Some of the Moors hate books because it's public information that you can't really dispute.
Right.
So these different factions of Hebrew Israelites, Moors, the natives that are recognized, the internet Indians, they're all kind of coming to a head. Now, some of the internet Indians want to do stuff outside of the internet. Do I necessarily agree with how they're doing it? Absolutely fucking not. Because if you're not connecting on the indigenous tip of things as to where you can know what lines you guys are on and actually repatriate your nation, because they want to go and like buy towns in Houston and split the money up. That's good on the business tip, but on the indigenous tip, you can get that town because I'm a what is it? Kashada Indian or some shit like that, and you'll get that town and quit claim it and call it a day. But I feel like they have a good idea, but it's not fully recognized. Like the power of the Indian is not fully recognized. The extent that it has, right? The full extent of the Indian is not fully being perceived on a
By
greater
the Indian himself.
by the Indian themselves. Yes. Yep. Shoot, even with this whole thing with the Cop City thing, I remember I was talking to one of the organizers. I said, all you need is an indigenous person, a dark one, that's a Johnson, to quit claim the land that they're using, and that's that. That's all you need to do. But nobody has done it. They're over there protesting and twerking and oh what I don't know what the hell else, you know. It don't bother me. You know, they don't really care. But it's the power isn't fully realized. Kind of like if you're a freaking anime weeb and you watch freaking Dragon Ball Z or any other anime where they have powers like My Hero Academia or even Power Rangers, whatever, like the Green Ranger, like the Lone Ranger or whoever, right? The power of the Indian is not fully understood because if the Southeast, and I'm talking from South Carolina all the way to Texas, of every Jigro colored person said, hey, I'm the Indian, you got to get the fuck out, they don't have a choice.
Right.
That people would not have a choice. So they're trying to do everything in their power to obscure obscure that. Okay, somebody said the Akahanic are closely related to Akamak. Are you aware of the group in Maryland claiming to be Akahanic? If you know them, can you comment? Thank you. Yeah, I can comment. It's gonna be shady though. Yes. When our nation first started to repatriate, there was a a web page talking about the Eastern Shore Indians and how they are dead and all this crazy ass shit. And the county was looking for um Indians, right? But they weren't looking for Indians. They wanted tourism, but they wanted us to be descendants of Akamak, not Akamak. So they wanted it how they wanted it. And the chief of the Akahanic, my clan mother, they did meet up and talk or whatever. However, there's been disputes about the Akahanic, and they use our court records to infer their lineage in Maryland. And if you know anything about Maryland and Peninsula, it's the same people. We have members that are from Somerset County, Crisfield, that are Accomack, because the whole peninsula is Accomack. There's Pocomoke that are related to the Gingakus that are Accomack. So, but what they do is in the writings they forget about the relation, right? Just different clans and bands, but it's the same nation. So the Akahanic were said to, but I'm gonna go to. I'm gonna answer. Should I comment as in a comment or should I comment verbally? I'll comment verbally, then I'll comment back to what they said. So yeah, the Akahanic and Akamak are the same people, right? Historically, they're the same people. Um, because the brother of Okiawampe, he ran the Akahanic people, right? Now when it comes to the Maryland tribe, they're having their own issues internally. Now, when we first repatriated and revived our nation, we came across the Akahanic, came to some meetings, all types of stuff. But currently the Akahanic have been facing, questions about their legitimacy, because I think there was an issue where funding, they lost some property. Like there's other stuff, there's internal issues with them, right? Now, historically, Accomack and Akahanic are the same people. I'll say that. But with the Maryland group, even territory rise, right? The peninsula, all of that would be considered Accomack. Even the Pocomoke, because the Pocomoke are related to the Gingakus. which are led to the Genghis skin. So essentially, all that is just Accomac, but the names change, the the chief and leaders change, but it's the same nation, different names. So because we have members that are from Maryland and have a lineage in Somerset and Crisfield. So yeah, the Accomack Alcoholic are the same, and the Maryland region and further up will be considered Accomack territory for sure. Actually, also the Hampton Roads area is Accomack as well. I'll say that. But when it comes to the Maryland group, um they are facing their own problems internally. They're having issues with each other legally. So I'm not in their per se nation, but we did have conversations early on during our repatriation and other things like that. But they are facing their own problems. I'll just say that, if that makes sense.
Okay, I have a question. I have two questions, but before I get into them, Antoine Lamont is back. So Antoine Lamont, you had to say something. You wanted to say something,
Yeah.
or
Greetings to all.
greetings. How are you doing tonight?
Greetings.
I'm doing well.
Great.
Um, I tried to get in a long time ago, but I was busy at the time. But I've been waiting for y'all to come back on the live. And thank you for allowing me to come on, to speak with you. You was actually reading something that you was giving a description about where they was making a discovery of people at the time. And listening to you, when you said Portland, first part I thought about was Maine. And then I'm in Portland, Oregon, which is, the West Coast, 50 miles from Russia, which they actually came in, backdoor. And then you read Sheraton. And I got to thinking, Sheraton is just right over here towards the Pacific. It's, maybe an hour and a half, almost 2 hours drive from where I'm located in Portland. It's also on, it's the Pacific coast. And then earlier, I was on someone's page on TikTok where I actually seen the filming of, the Giants, and in the time when they did make the discovery of us. Now I have to really bring to mind what the first thing that they called us when they came into the land. They said before Christopher Columbus. So I'm really about my identity. And they called us copper people, or even copper tone people, you know. And then I got to looking about, and seeing um, where they have in the Smithsonian Museum, where they're showing Powhatan. And I think you all familiar with it. It looked like he's wearing gems and whatnot have you. Well, actually, that's copper, just so you all know. It's not gold. And it's also showing holding what I think to be said to be platters, big plates. And one of them specifically has the copper on it, and it's showing, like turquoise, which if you put a T on Iroquois, it says turquoise, which is copper. So our identity is really clear, as to what we are. And then I got to looking into my name a little bit more, and particularly it says Antoine. But if you move that N around with that A right there and take that E off of there, it says nation. And if you put that E with that L on my Lamont, it says elements. And then you sound out what you see, what looks like a M, well, and that O, well, it says ma. And then you sounded out a little bit more at the ORE. It says Ori. So I'm Ori. I see a little Akamaki, what I see you got going on in your own uh, definition. And that's the same as saying, oh, see you, or I see you, which is our language greeting, right? A lot of us, if we pay attention to what it is about your own name, what you think is to be your name, is telling you what you are. In the time when you were being discovered, spiritually speaking, we're not Indians, we're indigenous. We're not indigenous, we're indigenous, which are people of the earth, copper people. We have to look deeper into what we're saying and then know that we are regional people. When we were being discovered in the time when it was actually, like classifying, we use the word classifying. And going a little bit deeper, what was the first thing that they said about, before biblical times? What's the term that they use? I think this is called maritime. I think that's how they use it. Maritime is antediluvian. Oh yeah, that's it. Ancient people.
Antediluvian.
Say it again.
Antediluvian.
Antediluvian. That's my great grandmama name. Lavania. And my great great grandmother. Anyway, that's my great great grandmother. So I had to look into, I learned about my genealogy. I had to do it for myself because I'm fortunate to be able to ask people, of who it is that how I got here, you know, and looking into the names, as to the history, the anti. Well, that's where I get Antoine from, and what nation am I? When we looking at all of this, examining closely as the way you all discussing, there's plenty of work out here that they recorded. Mind you, they recorded this stuff. Okay. And specifically, um, it is confusing, but you'll learn that the word confuse is actually a copper tone. It's an element. And that's where we all, come together.
Yeah, brother. Well, we're gonna go ahead and keep it moving, man. We got some other stuff to get through. So
But I
appreciate
wanted to
you.
ask you, I did ask you in the chat, what do you know about the 1866 treaty?
What
Because that's
18?
what people was talking about right now. I did look at your title. That's
Do
how I got to your channel.
Oh, well, I mean, we're letting the young lady present some things.
Okay.
You're asking me about the 1866 treaty
Well, I was
or any.
asking you all, you too, actually, both of
Well, you can ask her, but you
you.
can
Okay.
ask her, and I'm sure she'll tell you.
Okay.
But my view on the treaties is this: they didn't keep up their end of the bargain, and to
Okay.
keep going on stuff that doesn't work for us is not a cool thing. It doesn't work. And that's why we got to have some new thoughts and new ways of thinking. Because it's like she said earlier, we keep repeating and stuck in the same old rut. We're not trying to figure out ways to extricate ourselves from this. So with treaties, I mean, I don't see where they worked in your favor. So um, the chiefess might have another answer. Chiefess?
Yes.
You mentioned a statue of Powhatan. That statue wasn't Powhatan. That was a Temecuen Floridian chief with gems. But I also he's either a Floridian chief or he's a South American chief. There are a few chiefs of Powhatan. Uh, they all kind of look similar. There's one in the natural history, the Virginia Natural Museum of History, and there's also a few tobacco Indians. There's one on eBay for like $12,000. That is a Powhatan tobacco Indian, but um that one is South American. Now the treaty, is that referring to like the five civilized tribes? Are you referring to that treaty?
Not really. When I examined it as being where they were supposed to have rendered to us um, compensation for our land, showing us that we were supposed to be taxed. I also connected it with what's called the Indian Removal Act and correlation. So I see where, we were troubled um, at that time. And, all this, just the word treaty, I think of it as trick or treat. So I find it just to be just that. Like you said, they didn't work. And as of today, just to fast forward, I'm hearing a lot of people now recognizing this information and they're speaking on it. And yeah, like they really speaking on it. Seems to be the one articulate matter. So I want to ask. That's why I asked. What is your take on it? If you have any information about it, just so I can hear you even.
Well, for that really wouldn't relate to me because we had our reservation up in like the 1600s, from 1600 to like 1820. So that's like it's 40
To be
year difference in
Mhm.
regards to what happened to us compared to that specific treaty. Now, the only thing I could talk to is the Treaty of Middle Plantation, but even with
1677.
right, that even in itself might be fraudulent. Because on the actual document is typed, and they had a chief called Sure Enough that there's no record of. So that in itself might be fraudulent as well.
Mm,
And then it mentions Eastern Shore Indians, but we're not even listed as signing that treaty. So a lot of it could necessarily be fraudulent for that specific treaty with the name and the signage and everything. So I would kind of look further into that. Even with the treaties, those treaties, they always get, you know, they'll sign a treaty and then betray you type stuff. So, but with my nation in particular, our whole thing happened before like 1860. It happened like in 1820, 30, really 1820. Uh and the 16 and 1640, we had stuff going on prior to that. So I really wouldn't have a take on that treaty in per se, but I also feel like if that specific nation is not empowered currently, uh it kind of wouldn't have too much of too much of any say. Now, I don't know how it's being applied now, or if it's being applied, or what nations would be utilizing it, but it would probably be a case to case basis on who they would even say uphold this to and all of that type of stuff. So,
okay.
Cool, brother. Well, thank you for hanging out with us tonight, man. Don't be no stranger.
Oh, I'm not. I'm with y'all, man. I'll be waiting for y'all.
All right, brother. Well, thank
I'm gonna
you.
get off of here.
All right. Peace. Um, I had a couple of questions now that you brought it up. When you were talking about the nations that were on the Eastern Shore, you came up with names like Pocono, Oh, Acahonics, Acamax. You were talking about groups in Maryland.
Hmm.
How did those groups become separate from one another? Because if they're all in the same geographical area, how did Pocomoke's become Acahonics? How did all that happen?
Sometimes I feel like a lot of the times there's actually a record of some of the lower shore tribes planning to murder the king of the Pocomoke. So that's an actual court record from the 1600s. And the reason why is because the king of the Pocomokes was a damn shine. Like it was a collective amount of Indians that were planning to kill him. So when when people become compromised, you want to eliminate that type of energy immediately. So furthermore, like some of those names, a lot of times they'll either take on the name of okay, let's say, oh, it's kind of uh like Accomack is land on the other side. And let me see what Gingatig mean, because all these names have a meaning of that landmass, right? But I
Okay,
don't know if
okay,
Pokemoke means bitch ass nigga. It probably don't, but they be like some bitch ass niggas sometimes.
okay, because this is why I asked that question. Because names like Pocomoke, Accomack, Acahonic, Tallapoosa, Tuskegee, Lettahatchee, Akanachana, all these names, they have a different vibe to them than Cherokee,
Mhm.
Chickasaw. They have a different feel to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering on some of these terms, some of these tribal names, could it be that these are names that they just made up to try to sneak into the bloodlines here?
For the Cherokee, one thing I've learned, which there are good parts of the internet with this Indians type stuff, right? There's a dude, I forgot his name. There's a dude on TikTok. He's actually a Muskogee person like yourself. And he said that Cherokee was Cherokee, or some is a different pronunciation in the
Right,
Muskogee language, but the people that heard it said Cherokee. But the word in Muskogee or Yamasi or whatever nation that was Muskogean speaking that encountered that Inuit people said the Cherokee, or however they said it, to describe a different speaking person.
right,
So, or of a different language in Muskogean language. So we actually recognize each other. So a lot of the names that we have are from other nations, like even Mississippi. Mississippi is an Ojibwe Chippewa word. So at some point, a Canada Indian encountered Mississippian Indians, and then Mississippi became a thing. So like it's interesting how a lot of these words are our words. Even the English language is our language. It's our trade language. All right. Because when a lot of these people that are squatters and felons and orphans claiming to be settlers when they didn't settle nothing came here, they were a Germanic speaking people. They sounded like some demonic ass Sims when they got here because they weren't speaking the way we speak. You know, they sounded like some demonic puppet sounding people when they came here. They didn't sound how we talk. That was a learned thing, you know?
right. So, somebody in the chat writes, and this is what I say brings total confusion every time. When black people, so you don't know who those people are, they're just things. Black people, who are they? Since there's nobody black.
Right.
When black people ran away, they would hide amongst Indians.
How would you
So,
hide amongst people that didn't look like you?
right, right. And so this is what I'm saying. This is the confusion that it brings up.
Who is we know who black people are? How, if you didn't look like those people, how could you hide amongst them? Is what I'm saying.
And how would you take a name that other people called you? How
You
would
don't
that
make
happen?
sense. You don't make sense, sir.
Though,
They
listen,
hid amongst them because Indians were being attacked. If you can't, if you don't look alike, right? Like Mr. Johnson, I'm Mr. Johnson. If you don't look like Mr. Johnson, how are you gonna seek refuge if you don't look like the people? Look at his buckskin. If you don't look like Mr. Johnson, how are you gonna hide with the Mr. Johnsons of the land? How does that make sense? It don't.
black people and Indians mix. Brother, this is what I would say to you. And I'm saying it and I'm being
They
polite.
don't even mix now. That's the crazy thing. They don't mix now. You're not okay. You don't, you're a little bit confused. So let me break it to you like this. Take a wooden boat across the Atlantic from the eastern shore to Spain. I want to see a picture of you in Spain when you make it. Because yet, yeah, neither of you are full blooded. What are you talking? You want to come up on stage? Cause you sounding crazy. You
I
don't even
mean,
know
you're
what
gonna
full blooded
we're gonna
is.
put the we're gonna put the link in. We're gonna put the link in so you can come on. But look, dude,
Yeah,
have
because
a
you're
conversation.
confused.
Don't do your regular Pan African stuff.
Right.
Okay? Have a conversation. Come on in.
Talking about I'm so
Eh,
confused.
That's why. Because that's what they do, baby.
Like
It's
if
like,
you don't
dang.
look like them people, how are you gonna blend in? Oh, they mixed. Are natives and black people mixing now? Cause what I see on TikTok, they be tussling with each other. They
Yeah.
tussle.
I mean,
They
really.
will throw bows at each other all day and not think nobody's sexy. Like I've never seen it.
Right.
Like,
And
and
these are
my
just the
thing
story.
is, what you're not accounting for is what people don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about two things. They don't want to talk about white slavery and dark skinned Europeans that came here in the droves. They never want to talk about that because the African that you're talking about is the European you should be mentioning that was not white. You're missing that part. I am full blooded. I don't know what the problem is. Are you going to come up or are you just going to talk? Because the link is right there. I'm full blooded on both my sides because the African part, you're going to have to prove that. And somebody
Can't.
like me, I'm going to cook you real good. Listen, let's get into it. 1619 didn't freaking happen. The slave trade happened from the islands, Caribbean, South America to the North America, but it did not happen in Africa.
Right.
1619 did not happen. You know what did happen? 1618, 100 European slaves, orphans, and felons came to Virginia from London. That happened. That happened a lot, actually.
So it's not like you're gonna come on. So
Right.
we
You don't
invited you
like
on and you didn't.
I will cook you. I will cook you and be happy about it. But all this, oh, I respect your view. Like, because my thing is this, right? Even the tribes that you're talking about, you're not taking into the account that a lot of people that are us, the so-called blacks, the Indians here, we got sent to different countries. We got sent to Sierra Leone and different countries through the American Colonization Society. We got sent to countries. So if you see a certain genome that's American in Africa, it's because we got sent there.
Uh he 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 came on. So here he goes.
All right.
Say Sean.
Peace,
Say
peace,
Sean.
peace.
Spill it, brother.
Um,
Spill
I'm
it. Don't
good.
don't take too
I,
long.
yeah, I'll let you guys lead the convo, so it could be peaceful. What aspect of this do you guys want to touch on?
You're talking about Native Americans and blacks. Hit it.
Say that
Go
one more
ahead, sir.
time.
You're talking about Native Americans and blacks.
Yeah,
Give it to us.
I'm. Yeah, I made the statement that they mixed.
What proof do you have of that?
Um, I could use DNA. I could use family ties. I could use the Trail of
No, no, no,
Tears.
no, no, sir. What?
I
How
don't
do
want to.
you? I'm not talking about how you. Somebody told you it happened. What do you say happened? You tell
What do
me
I
how
say?
it happened.
Okay, so to be
Because if
fair,
they mixed, because if
ho-
this is just simple.
go ahead.
When you look at the population of the southern states that the sister talked about earlier, in all those states, they're less than 2% of the population today. You mean all those people got wiped out, the so-called Native Americans, or somebody just telling you some bullshit?
You ready for me to respond? I want this to be a really good combo. Respectful
Brother, you
combo.
don't
So
have
I
to
want.
do all that. I don't make my I don't go long. I asked you a question.
Okay. No, I was just asking if you was ready for me to respond. I wanted you to land your plane. I didn't want to talk over you. Okay, so you said that they're less than 2%. You're correct. Now in today's time, um, originally, like you guys were saying, you know, most areas were like the whole country was practically Indian territory. So when you're talking about southeast states, as far as like why you don't see them much no more, you see the Trail of Tears. So this notion that they were wiped out, they weren't really like all of them are wiped out. Like a lot of them were forced west. A lot of them are still there. A lot of them are still in the South. You have PD Indians still in South Carolina. You don't see them much because they're just, they blend in now. You might not know. I just was looking up the some of the indigenous tribes of Illinois and Chicago. They still there. A lot of people mistaking them for Mexicans, they say. So I'm not saying that, at the time that I'm saying that a lot of this mixture was happening, the Indians were more predominant than the black people. This was their land. The whole southeast, the whole east coast was filled with Indians. So
Sir,
to
who are the
say that,
black people? Who are the see, this is what I'm saying. Spit it out so I can retort. You're going on
no, I'm
longer.
telling you, asked me a question. I answered your question about mixing, and you referred to them
Sir,
being 2% now. So
sir,
I explained to you why now you don't see them much.
sir, I asked you who were the blacks.
Okay,
And
you're
you
asking
said,
another. Okay, I got you. You're asking another question now, so I'll answer that. The black people are the African slaves that were brought here.
sir, do you have a nurse in your family?
A nurse?
Yeah.
No, I don't have a nurse in my family.
Do you know a nurse?
Yes, I know plenty of nurses.
Okay. This is what I want you to do because we're gonna go ahead and move along. Ask a nurse, say, is it possible that people come on a ship across the Atlantic, pissing and shitting on each other in those waves, going through hurricanes and stuff? It's about a 3-month trip on a wind-driven ship. Ask them, would those people make it to America? Would they survive it? Listen to what they tell you. Internalize that and then put yourself in that situation. Because, sir, what you're talking about, we're past that. So I'm gonna go ahead and let you go because this sister got something to do, and I have a couple of more questions with her. Thank you for calling and have a good night. Chief, this
That was
here,
pointless.
here- This is what I'm saying, man. This is what I'm saying. Come on.
Didn't even answer the question. Older, like
And
common
this is what we
sense,
get.
bro. Fucking common sense. Like, if I'm telling you, I can pull out a book and show you that the Virginia Company didn't have any records of any Africans. And if it's a Negro ship, it would be from Barbados. That's what the government of Virginia said in 1706. So they admitted they didn't have that shit going on. And the Negroes were the Indians. So, like, yeah, none of y'all are full blood Indians. So you want to keep talking. Who's your fifth great grandmother who's African? How about that? Who is your fifth great grandmother that's African, since you know everybody? Sashun, Sapubla. They are from, they came from Europe, not Africa. Dumbass.
Is peddling the good
I
news of our
know,
Lord and
like, what's your lineage? Who's your fifth great grandmother? Like, yeah, I am. I did say it. I said it a couple of times. Come back up here. Nah, come back up here since you want to talk shit. But when you want we wanted you to talk, you couldn't say shit, and I'm about to cook your ass because you want to play. You want to play in my face? Come up, because we gotta find your African ancestors. We're gonna send your ass back to Africa since you want to play. Like, you don't even know what full blood is. Like, you got all this venom, but when you come up, you all docile. Like, that's weird. Like, you saying all this crazy stuff in the comments, but then when we try to address you, you get weird. That's weird. Oh, you didn't say we weren't full blood when we let you up, but now you want to say all this crazy stuff in the
here he is. You guys go ahead and speak. I'm a moderate.
all right.
We're gonna let the young lady go first, say Sean. Then you go. Then you guys play like a tennis match. Go ahead. Go ahead.
You was talking
Jesus.
real spicy in the comments, talking crazy. Said neither one of them said they were full blood, and you said in the comments before you got up, and I said that I was full blood on both sides. So that was a lie. What is your issue? Because when we came up here and you brought you up here to speak, you was acting cool, but then you want to get spicy in the chat. So what's the issue? What's the damage for real?
I really didn't get spicy in the chat. You guys, he removed me from the panel and then tried to act like I didn't answer his questions or I wasn't
What's
respectful.
considered okay?
Okay,
What's
I
considered
didn't
full
cut you
blood?
off, sister. I didn't cut you off. I'll let you speak. So,
But, hey, but excuse me, say Sean.
yes,
Keep
sir.
your keep your talking brief. Don't keep going on and on and on.
I'm not going on and on. She just asked me a question and I was trying to answer and she started to cut me off, but I didn't cut her off. Again, I'm trying to have a respectful conversation, but
Dude, get to the point.
I
Stop
was
all that.
trying
Get
to.
to
You
the
cut
point.
me off, brother. She asked me a question. She said that I was making references to you guys not being full blooded. I didn't catch you saying that you were full blooded, sister. But if you say you are cool, I would disagree, but I can't tell you who you are.
Here's the
So
problem
go
with
ahead,
what
go
you're
ahead.
saying. You have to, one, connect me to your relatives to even make a claim like that. Here's why you fucked up. Because one, I'm not gonna tell you you're not a fucking African. You can be a fucking African. I don't know none of your fucking people. I don't know where you're from. I don't know who your people are from. I don't know what ship manifests, what ship your folks came off of. So I don't fucking know. But you're not going to sit up here and tell me, if you want to believe that, oh, I am. And I know how I connect to this land. And no one can tell me shit about it. Now, you telling someone who they aren't full blood and all that, we don't do that here. Because if you want to talk to the Indian, you got to pay a fucking toll, bitch, and you're not an Indian. So I ain't got to tell you shit about being Indian. So you can be African mix, African admixture, all that good old stuff. But you don't do that. We don't do that here. We say, what's your nation, your band, your clan, all that type of shit. But since you're not of Indian country, you don't do that. I need to speak to your African elder to get some straightening with you. Do you have an elder I can speak to in regards to your behavior?
No, can you ready for me to respond?
Go ahead.
Notice I never said you wasn't Indian at all. You know what I'm saying? So that's one. Two, as you just said, you said I'm not of your tribe or your nation, so I wouldn't be able to speak to one of your elders or such. You know, but you're asking me to speak to one of my elders. I don't understand the double standard.
You don't understand it, but you're acting like what you did, what you said was cool. I'm like, I catch shade. Like, I'm not no dummy. But like I said, what do you consider full blood? Because you are trying to imply nobody said they were full blood up here. So what is your idea of what a full blood Indian is to your standards?
Well, you guys, before I left the panel, I'm assuming, he can correct me if he feels the need to. I'm assuming that he was insinuating that the slave trade never happened because he said that, ask a nurse or if it's possible. So you guys are saying that, well, he's saying that. I'm assuming he's saying that Africans never came here.
Yep,
So
that's exactly what I'm saying.
okay, that's great. Okay, cool. So on on as it pertains to me, based on my research, that would be I believe the total opposite. So when you talk about that you're full blooded Indian, when I look at history in Virginia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, Maryland, all up and down the southeast, um, it begs to tell a different story. There's tons of Africans there. I can show you guys a census of Africans being on census in 1850. Um, during this time of the when the slave trade was thriving. So when people say that they're full blooded, I'm not saying that it's impossible. I'm just being realistic. If you have Europeans, if you have black people around, if you have Indians around, people are gonna mix. That's just human nature. So to say that these people weren't mixing because you feel like they didn't look alike or there was war between the Indians or the Europeans or black people couldn't, that's just not realistic. So
You know what's not realistic? You know what's not realistic? You saying that Africans came over here on wood-driven ships with no water to drink. What food did they eat? See, if I start asking you questions about the story that you tell of your history, you can't answer it. You'll just say, like a Christian, that's what I believe. Where are the ships that brought all these people here? You'll come up with some old bullshit story to, try not to talk about it. But it's a simple question, especially that we know the people who would have bought these people over here, they would have slave ships museum all through the Caribbean, all up and down the east coast of America. Nothing that you say you can prove. You just heard it. Nothing. Nothing. Prove one.
okay, so here's one of the issue I know a lot of people have with this slave ship story. When you guys talk about, you say like, oh, how did all of these people come over here? A major part that you guys leave out is that a lot of slaves didn't make it. A lot of them got tossed over because
But we're
of the
not
things
talking
that you
about them.
got.
We just want to know the
I,
ones
I
who
let you
made
land,
it.
brother. I didn't
Brother,
cut you off,
get to
brother.
the point. Stop
I am
talking
getting
and
to the point.
bullshit. Get
See,
to the point.
I'm not so we having a conversation. You're projecting and you're asking me to
Get
answer you,
to
but
the
you're trying to cut.
point.
I am getting to the point. You again, when you guys talk about this story, you say it's unbelievable, but you leave out that there's believable parts of it. Every slave did not make it. They there's documentation telling you that they tossed a lot of them over because of the things that you guys are saying, the sicknesses, the diseases, the starvation. They have this
So,
documented. So
so how
there's
many
if
people?
hold on,
How
brother.
many people would they have
Hold
thrown
on,
over?
brother. It's not like people are saying that they all just came over here and made it. Nobody's saying that. Nobody's saying
You're
that.
not
So that's
saying
that's
that.
that's a
You're not
that's
telling
a
us.
fallacy
You're
that
not
you're just
telling us
assuming.
anything.
Say that again.
You're not telling,
I
you.
can't
So
hear you.
you
I can't hear you,
believe?
brother.
Yeah,
Wait, say
yeah.
that one
Do
more
that.
time.
Yeah. No, because God damn. So this is what I'm saying about these cats. Get to the point. Tell me, how do people step on a ship 5,000 miles away with no water on windblown ships? How do they make it here? They're pissing, shitting, vomiting, all kind of stuff on these boats. And they come to America through hurricane season. I mean, they're at the equator, so the earth is wobbling big time. Explain that. All that bullshit, man, get to the point. And y'all never do that. Not only are you confused, everybody you're talking to is confused. Get to the point, man. We don't want to hear about the people who didn't make it. You don't even know who they were. You don't even know who they were. Explain how these people got here. Explain where the ships are. Explain where all the shackles are on the planet, on the earth. You can't do it. And when we ask you to explain it, and this is with everybody, anybody you ask, you always go into this bullshit diatribe that makes no sense. So, Acamac Engine, what's going on?
Peace, man. Kayuk.
Caillou.
Kayuk. Emily. Yeah, I mean, I heard him say, I noticed that he said documents. It's documented. People use it, that's a loosely used word, right? Because that's not, that was in fact a lie, right? Because documents is not books. What you referring to are stories written by people about a transatlantic slave trade that supposedly happened, and basically is really a theory, and a theory that can't be proven. Like they was constantly saying, man, who are these people? Now when you say records, now you got to deal with recorded. You gotta know what records are. Records are recorded information at the time of a specific event, right? So you know what I mean. So that means if I want to know what's happened today, that means okay, the primary source information would be recorded from today, right? If I want to find out something that happened on, just say if I want to find out something that happened in 1950, I would want to go read a source that happened in 1950 or very close to that year. I wouldn't go and read something that somebody wrote in 2000 about something that happened in 1950 and say, oh, that's validated. And that's what we do. We sit here and we read these books that's written by thousands of people 300 years after the incident happened and then claim that all these things is validated. So that's why he kept asking you, who are these people? And you're just regurgitating the same old story. And we're in a different age right now. We gotta be in the questioning age. You gotta question things. If you're still just following the lead and following along without even asking no questions, you know what I mean? You could basically consider dumb these days. You know what I mean? Because that's the plan. That's the plan that's been going on for years. I tell you, you listen. I say yes, you say yes, right? Right. So that's the whole system that's been implanted in this country. So, you say jump, I say jump, you say ha ha. You know what I'm saying? We got to get rid of that, man. You're supposed to say, we got to change it from you say jump, I get high. Well, you say jump, but why? It's time to start asking why. For what? What's the purpose? You see what I'm saying? Just question things, man. Just don't run with nothing. You know what I mean? Just because it sounds good to the ear. You know.
Thank you, brother. I really appreciate that. And that's what I'm saying. So you see how you get to the point? Get to the point so the conversation can move on. Don't keep bitching and whining about something. Get to the point. And your point, you never make a point. And that's how come we never get nowhere, because people are not you, brother. The brother that was on, you don't get to the point. and it just left stagnant, which is precisely where we are now, because you never can explain nothing you say. It's like when you ask a Christian, explain how two men can create a woman. They do exactly what you do. You just keep bullshitting and you're not getting to the point. So, and like the brother said, man, we way past that point. We can't afford to let our children eat that kind of garbage because they're gonna come after you like the sister did. Okay, Chiefess. Um, are you violently offering information about being American Indian to societal zombies?
I used to.
I'm ser-
I
I'm ser-
definitely
I mean,
I definitely used to. But you see what happens when you do. They're like, oh, blah, 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 and all this weird
right.
stuff. And it's just like, to me, what pissed me off about Sashun or Shishot, whatever, is that he did a lot of generalizations. I'm sticking to where my people are from, Virginia, right? Virginia was so huge. If you think about it, there was only two places that existed in America for a long time: Florida and Virginia. That is it. Talking about she's triggered. I'm not triggered. Anyways, you did a lot of generalization, right? So if there's only two states, they take a majority of the southeast and the northeast up to Michigan, right? So if you look at something like a William Strachey book where it described the Virginia Indians, no, it was not. Are you a troll? Because here's the thing about Virginia: the governor of Virginia in 1706 stated that there weren't any African ships, and the only ships that came here are from Barbados or Bermuda or the islands. And a lot of those islanders are Arawaki and Caribbeans or fucking from Europe, dark skinned Europeans. So you're forgetting a big part of what they don't tell you is how many melanated people that came here as opposed to the African. They were melanated, they just weren't freaking African. And a lot of us got moved around from Peru to Puerto Rico to Virginia, they South Carolina, they kept getting shuffled around. So the African thing is what you're missing, and trying to say somebody is triggered when you generalize. And I asked you, and I was going to ask you, who is your fifth great grandmother that's an African slave? What ship did she come off of? What's the shipment? What's the slave manifesting ship that she came off of? Because that's specific to you, but you're talking in generalizations. So to me, it's like, if I'm talking about the indigenous Lord and Savior, to people like that, it's not going to go over well. And you talk about Afrikaan, like 1850, like that's, you need a source of book, like your energy vampire. So my thing is, I no longer do that. The people that are going to get it are going to take that information and apply it to their lives. The people that
What
won't
man?
get it,
Africans, man. Yeah. How did you know they're African, sir?
right?
How,
I'm
what
so
makes them African?
confused. And you're targeting Virginia of all places. And you know how big that place was? Come on, bro. Get out of here.
They just can't. They cringe on the fact that this is Negro land, man. America is Negro land. It's the land of melanated people, man. Just get it through your head, man.
Yeah, those African people you're talking about, they might be from Canada. They might be from fucking Louisiana. They might be Eastern Algonquin. They might be Muskogean. They might be all types of different stuff, because if you look at the description of every person, whether it's the East Coast, the West Coast, down south, and even in Canada, they were all deeply melanated people with afros. They didn't have straight hair. They had wide noses. talking about y'all don't want to know. We are people that are in our nations. My name is the chiefess. Like, I don't know what, that's not no, oh, I'm a chiefess. No, I literally have to deal with chiefess type situations all the time. So like, I'm with my nation and you saying we don't want to know, but you doing general stuff. Like, for us to get in a place to where we move as academics on the Eastern Shore and the county knows about us thoroughly, that's a different feat as trying to argue on the internet. That shit don't mean nothing.
Let me
That
ask
don't
you a
mean
question.
nothing. Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you a question, Chiefess. So do you think is it these like people that are like celebrating New Year's in the dead of winter? Do you see it's mostly those type people who are totally disconnected from a time space continuum?
Mm.
New Year starts in the spring when everything starts springing up. And these people, their time, like it's New Year, it's freezing outside. But these people celebrate this stuff. These people celebrate holidays that have nothing to do with them. Do you find that's a lot of people that you run into, that people are just totally disconnected from life or reality?
I feel like a lot of people are connected to whatever they're being fed and whatever they're being told. So you're going to have people like people in the comments that think this way, but you're going to have a group of Moors think a certain way. You're going to have Israelites and whatever think this way because, or they're going to bond to what they feel like makes them feel better. But there's so many distractions, bro. There's so many distractions on all the areas, like from where the Virginians are, the Southeast, up north. Like, they're betting on our ignorance of our power. They're betting on it. And they also do things to keep us distracted, to keep us feeling powerless. You know, common sense will tell you, why would anybody take a wooden bowl with 300 Africans to teach them a certain language? Mind you, these motherfuckers is Germanic speaking people. They sound like demonic Sims, so they don't make any sense. So you got two foreigners farming a land they know nothing about. Oh, the Indian helped us. Okay, who's the Indian, right? Why is there no record of any African translators or any Guinea or whatever there would be called translators? It don't make any fucking sense. You're paying, keep in mind, you're paying them to work for you for what, 4 years, then you release them, but you have to nurse them back to health. So this is like the most horribly contrived temp service system ever. This don't make any fucking sense. It doesn't make any sense. You know, people are going to rock with what they're comfortable with. But if I ask you about your fifth great grandmother and who's the African fifth great grandmother, they ain't got nothing for that. They don't have anything for that at all. So for me to give information to zombies, that's dead. That is not productive. That's a waste of time. Like, all that wokeness, I feel like wokeness has been overly commoditized to the point where it's just annoying. Like, it's an echo chamber. It's been overly utilized, and it's now just, you know, it's just some basic ass shit now. It's not even really helpful. It might be a hindrance too, honestly. So yeah.
So what would you tell a cat like that, and a lot of people? Because I know people in their 60s and 70s is on the same path that guy is on. So what would you tell those people? because you like you said, you're not trying to argue. It's really you don't even know what you're talking about. And this is what I always tell people. Why, how come Native Americans just don't call themselves Americans? Why would you, what's Native American? What's that? Because Native just means born here. Women fly over from China and Russia to have Native American babies in California every day. Every day.
Mm,
Explain. If Native Americans were, wouldn't they just call themselves Americans? And
right.
so these are little things we don't get. So asking this brother questions like this, he wouldn't get it. He don't see it. And that's cool. And that's cool. But I'm saying, man, get to the point. So inside of being an internet Indian, urban Indian, shine, coon Indian, repatriation to your nations, what are some of the things people can do if they're trying to get out of that African stronghold?
I mean, gotta you have to use critical thinking because Mr. Shasha, he's posting his ancestors. One is Anthony Fisher, Prince George, Virginia, 1850, birthplace Africa. Why is his name Fisher? Why is his surname Fisher? And why is this one named Harris? You're not using critical thinking, like that doesn't really make any sense. Now you got a Carter. Oh, what? See? Oh, hell no. He's just he's stupid. So he's just dumb.
Birthplace,
Wow.
birthplace Africa.
Wow. So he's just slow. Cause he has somebody born in Portsmouth. Wow, talking about they're African. Bro, just go back then. Don't worry about here. Just go back and deal with your people that are named Harris, Fisher, and Franklin. None of them names are actually European names. Those are Indian names that you're bringing up, calling them African. So you're ethnociding your ancestors. That's some weird shit. Wow, that's sad. That's sad. I mean, just go to Africa, call it a day, bro. Like, if they're all African, and I don't even know. That's just sad. What was the question again?
I mean, I can't believe it. And I'm saying this cat sound like he's about 30 something. And so this is, when we were talking about the picture earlier, when should we start teaching the youth that? And like you said, soon as they start can talk,
You,
because
I keep
you
saying,
see what teaching these people that they're African. I mean, that's all they hear about.
yeah,
No African, and he can't go to none of those people he's claiming right here and go look them up, and they say they corroborate his stories. See,
right.
this is what I'm saying. When you're talking to people who don't know what, come on, y'all.
Ooh, I got your bitch ass too. He said none of these people from Virginia, these are documented on the census. Ooh, so guess what? You realize every single one of them people that you showed me, a fucking Carrington, a Carter, a Franklin, a Fisher, a Harris, you know what was happening at the time that they came back or whatever the fuck? The American Colonization Society happened. That happened in 1817. So it fits in the time period that they could be born in those countries and come back. So actually they are Indian. So you played yourself. You played yourself because those surnames aren't African surnames at all. Carter, Carrington, who else? Franklin, Fisher. Yeah. And in 1860, okay, they came back or whatever. Yeah, so that makes sense. It makes sense. It tracks to me. It tracks. So yeah, talking about you got I no, those are names, those are Indian names. You don't know what your brain needs to be able to understand that the American Colonization Society brought people like that Carrington, that Carter and Fisher to Africa. If you can connect that, it'll kind of help you in the long run. But I'm not your mama or your grandmama or all this stuff. Those are Indian names. You
Can I?
got you got to
Let me
do
cook.
some people thinking. Yeah, cook them.
Because listen, this boy here, I hate when these people always try to give our names to these Europeans. I hate it. Listen, we're gonna talk about land patents, the land ownership, right? Surnames in this country ties you to the land, Pacific land that belongs to your bloodline. This is in every single state. As a matter of fact, every single crevice, actually, of America, North, South, and Central. You know what I mean? So when you Carter, you crazy man. You descend from an ancient Indian people who were called Negroes when they first got here. But I mean, it seems like you don't really want to understand, honestly, and that's how a lot of them are. You know what I mean? They just want to be African. Because I see him noticing him lying. He's just sitting there putting lies up, saying that his ancestor was on a census. His Franklin ancestor was on a census as African. Yeah, come on, buddy, stop it. That name does not come from Africa, man. So I mean, if you want to be African, like the sister said, you can go and be African. Go put your dashiki on. Go do your little thing. But you're not gonna paint. You can't paint us African.
Either way, you saying your mother is smarter than me. Okay, well, go date your mom,
What?
Edward. I don't know what that statement was supposed to do. I don't get it. Either way, those names with the Carter and all that, those are not, yeah. Talking about don't, man, come up, bro. Come up. Come up.
That's
Talking about
we
don't
talking
lie
about. It's my
about
state
you,
too,
nigga.
man.
That's my state. So you can get jumped. Come up.
So
Yo,
now I so now I understand what people be saying agents are. I get it now. It's like, dude, you just causing confusion. You don't know what you're talking about. Everybody in the chat see it. These people are giving you information that would be valuable to the average person. And you probably are an African. You're probably one of those second generation Africans. But this woman and this young man is telling you about their home, and you just telling them they're lying. But if they ask you about your home, you know what you would say? Not a goddamn thing. So that's why you damn grow up, homie. That's all I can say. In closing out, Chiefess.
About don't
Uh,
you lie about Virginia, bro. There's plenty of people that are from Virginia, but you not about to play them games at all. And you gonna definitely explain to my mother is smarter than you. You're triggered. You're definitely triggered. And I can get you more triggered if you would like. Pull out some books, you know.
don't don't
That's
hurt
gonna
them.
hurt.
Look,
Gonna hurt. Talking about, yeah, no, come up. I shared the link, so go on up. Come up. Talk that cash shit. Potomac River Trail from the be used. Okay, turn up. I can't pronounce the chief's name, but turn up, Jeremiah. Turn up. Okay.
here's your boy Shay son.
You don't know nothing. All right, go ahead.
So when I first came up here, like I said, I was trying to be respectful to you guys. We having a build. So when you
Get to
see,
the point, man.
ah
Get to the
man, y'all
point,
cutting me
dude.
off. Y'all
Damn.
cutting me off. Y'all cutting me off. The sister said that Africans never came to Virginia.
Dude, listen. Get to the point. Stop whining like a little hoe and get to the point. Damn.
You don't even want to let me talk. That's funny. But again, you saying that you said that the sister said that there wasn't African people in Virginia, and I'm showing you names that are on the census. I'm giving you names. I'm not from Virginia. These census, I can show you these real census with these people birthplace saying Africa in Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, all in the 1800s. So you're saying that Africans never came here. Who are these people? Who are these people? I can show you Indians too. You want me to show you some Indian names? I can put some Indian names in the chat for you too. You're gonna tell me that those Indian names are American too? Again, you guys be speaking about certain topics and you don't know enough. And I get it. I get it. And then you get triggered when somebody try to tell you or teach you, but I get the denial, I get all of that. But sometimes humble out and it's okay to learn new things and then you go fact check me. If you need to know how to find these African people in the 1800s, I can show you how. It's not that hard.
Well, I don't want you to show me. I just want you to answer a question that the young lady asked earlier. Your fifth great grandmother, please tell us where she's from,
My
how
fifth
she got
my
here.
fifth my
Sir,
fifth great
sir,
grandmother is
sir,
from South
sir,
Carolina.
sir. I didn't.
I
I
just
let you
answered your
speak.
question. Now you get to
You
the
know you
point. Now I
didn't.
answered your question. She's
Your
from
great
South
grandmother
Carolina.
came from
She's
where?
from South Carolina. What's
I
next?
thought you said she was from Africa.
I never said that. I never said that.
No, okay,
Yeah, don't
well,
misquote me,
she was
brother.
from,
Have some integrity.
dude. Well, bring us that's why I say
That,
get
that,
to
that,
the
that
point.
you asked me my
Tell
fifth
us your
great grandmother.
people.
I
Tell
answered
us
your
your
question. I
people
said
who
she's from
came
South
from Africa.
Carolina, Charleston, South Carolina. What else do
Tell
you
us
want to
your
know?
people that came from Africa.
You said what?
Tell us your people.
All of my eldest black family members that are from South Carolina on that side of the family that I'm speaking about are African offspring. That's what they are. That's what those people in Charleston was. If
Oh,
you don't know, do you need history on that too?
oh,
You need history on Charleston? Because
oh,
I got
you
VA
mean,
history, I got
dude,
Charleston
dude,
history,
dude.
I got
Hey,
Maryland
dude,
history. What do you want to
can you
know?
stop talking? Damn. Can
Because
you
now,
stop
because now,
talking?
because
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Stop talking. Because you're not saying nothing about you're not saying nothing. You haven't explained to me how a ship came here across the Atlantic. You haven't explained that yet. You can't explain it. You won't explain it. You just keep talking. You say you're people from Africa. Where in Africa are they from? It's simple. They were from the Bambabo tribe, whatever. That's all we asking. And you won't get to the point. Whatever that shit you doing, dude, that's what keeps everybody confused. You're not getting to the point. You never get to the point. None of you Pan Africans do. This is what you do, and this woman is telling you stuff about, man. If you look at the stuff that she pulls up from the historical records from Virginia, it'll blow you away. Everything you talking about is false. Everything. That's why you can't explain it. That's why you keep talking. Get to the point. And you Pan-African, Moors, Hebrew, you never get to the point. You just keep talking. So, Chief, this close it out for us. Run that story back by us about the poor blacks again to refresh everybody's mind with it. And please close us out.
What's up?
The poor blacks coming in, the poor blacks going to their settlement. Can you make that plain again?
I think I can. Yeah.
Brother,
So
if you think a census, if you think and I know you probably believe it, because that's what African Americans but do. They believe everything they hear. If you think that Negroes volunteer for the census, that all the Negroes volunteer for the census, you a damn fool. That's like somebody telling you how many birds are in the sky. They tell you a number. Guess what you do? You just believe it, knowing damn well you can't count nothing, everything. That's like how many leaves are on that tree. If they tell you two and you see a million, you will say two. You only do what they tell you to do. You don't think, you don't ask questions, you don't put two and two together. You just keep running your yap, never getting to the point. So, uh, and that's what's making these children, confusing these children. See, little 15, 16 years old, you'd be confusing them for life. So, stop talking, man. You're not no help. Okay, Chiefess, I'm sorry.
He said I did the no, we didn't lie. We didn't lie at all. But I don't know what your purpose is, but we're not even with that. I even made a point with the census names that you mentioned, how those surnames are indigenous to the Americas. And I even mentioned that a lot of Indians like us, were sent to Africa during the American Colonization Society in 1871. So if someone had on their birth record born in Africa, that would be the reason why. So see how easily I explained that and how it makes sense? I even said that the governor of Virginia in 1706 said there be no Negro ships that come to Virginia, if not from Barbados. And that's not Africa. So either way, it's called the American Colonization Society. It's a real thing. Talking about lying. So, like I said, people like that are part of the problem because we ask them who's their ancestor that's African. Oh, they're from South Carolina. Talking about she's embarrassed in Virginia. Like, you're doing too much.
Yeah,
You want
don't give them no energy.
you want my energy real bad. That's creepy. So, you're a fan. So, people like that, they don't help the conversation. Like, if you look at situations where you need people to have a concerted effort and work together, or let's say you're in school and you have a school project and it's a group project, you got that one person that don't want to do nothing but just lay off of your work. That's people that you want to leave behind. You need to ostracize them and abandon them indefinitely, because all they're going to do is rotten all the fruit that you will try to bear. Leave them in the dust. They do not bring anything to the conversation. They don't bring anything to America, Virginia, or Africa, or to their progenitors at all. They are a shame to their ancestors. Leave them where they are. They don't help anything whatsoever. So, and what they're going to do is go back to their settlement. And we mentioned how this political comic, talked about poor blacks going to their settlement. I mentioned a sighting from Northampton County of free Negroes and them raising $15,000 to send them somewhere they're not from. And another mention of the American Colonization Society of people being sent to Africa that aren't from Africa. So we kind of touch based on this pretty heavily already. And the crazy thing is, I have a whole entire script, and we didn't even make it to the third topic. at all. I think maybe we halfway made it, but we were so interrupted by someone, I guess, who wants to get clout or attention. But here's the thing, you're not going to grasp the power that indigenous people have talking about Africa. You're not going to understand it. If it has no value to you, that is fine. However, all this internet Indian information battle shit, that don't mean shit to me. I'm Indian in real life every day. Not on the internet, not just on the internet, but in real life, I'm an Indian. I'm Accomack all day. And what it means to be Accomack is very unique and a very powerful thing that every person should be able to experience in their own way. So when people like Kyrie Irving say, find your nation, find your tribe, like, do that. Whether it's an African tribe, an Athabascan tribe, find who your people are. Because everybody else is just fighting about information, betting on your subjugation, your distraction, and your consent. They need your consent to have anything in this country. And you keep giving it to them. I don't give people here or whoever consent. I'll let them know, hey, I'm Accomack, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that from the jump, outright. But if you don't understand the value of that, it's not going to really mean anything to you. It's important to know how your family fits into this history, not just some old Alex Haley generalized, plagiarized nonsense. Some very glazed over, pointless thought of information that you can apply. So you can slander all you want, but one thing that I think somebody in the chat mentioned the Alcoholic, and keep this in mind. When we were repatriating at the time a couple years ago, the Alcoholic, who is also Accomack, same nation historically, right? They said that, oh, the Accomacks, they were known to be in the courts a lot. Keep that in mind. Anybody that wants to talk crazy, keep that in mind. We're still like that. We're really like that. As the young people say, we're really like that now. So you learn different things about what customs, ceremonies, things of that nature, house structures, just very specific things unique to your nation. And for the Accomacks, we were known to sue. We had towns, we had brick houses, and just, try to understand outside the midst of all of the banter, what really matters.
And what really matters is finding out who your people are. Do a genealogy. Just follow the mamas back. Mamas are the one that have the babies. Your grandmama, mama, great grandmama, they same people. Follow the ones who have the babies. It's that simple. You don't got to go to Lewis Gates. You ain't got to watch reruns of Roots. Do it yourself. When you do it yourself, you're going to always follow your instructions and nobody else's. You're not going to follow John Henry Clark's. You're going to follow your own, what you look up. That's why you got to do your genealogy. It's just that simple, folks. And maybe some of you are Africans. second, third generation Africans who came over here in the 1960s, who came over here in the 19, that might be your people. But what I can say about you people is this: there's things going on from where you ran from, and they need your help. Go help your folks. Stop all the talking, bickering, bantering, shining. Stop all that. Go home and help your folks. Because you sound kind of strange telling the people over here who they are and who they are not when you can't even prove who you are. So I want to thank the chiefess. I want to thank the Accomac Engine for joining us tonight, sharing information that's right here close to your home. Most of the stuff that she said, you can apply it to yourself, your genealogy, the town where you're from. Because remember, all the laws are what do they call that when what do they call it when all the laws are the same? You see them on all the trucks, the driving trucks, apportioned,
Yep.
apportioned. Same thing. That means it's the same everywhere. This sister gave you 2 years of information in 2 hours. I would say use it. So, Chief, this thank you, Accomac Engine. Thank you for joining us tonight. I really appreciate you.
Appreciate me. Appreciate you likewise, man.
Appreciate you as well.
Okay, and we'll see you guys next time. We'll be back in a couple of days.
Oh yeah.
You guys have a good night. All right, peace.